Hi everyone and welcome to Trending Topics Live, our video series. I'm Alex Kozbunarova, your host today, and I'm on a virtual trip to Bucharest, where I'm going to meet Bogdan Iordache. He's quite an interesting figure from the Romanian ecosystem, and we're going to explore together what's going on over there. First, just a brief introduction and a glimpse into his activities. Bogdan is investor, serial entrepreneur, and community builder. He's a tech geek turned serial entrepreneur and has many interesting projects like, for example, Conectoo, an email marketing platform started in 2007. Notice that it's right before the crisis and exited 7 years later. He is one of the initiators of Tech Angels, the first and biggest business angels network in Romania. And his current hustle is called How to Web. That's the most significant and biggest conference in Romania for tech and digital business, and one of the most important in the CE region. That's, as I said, just a glimpse, and I'm going to say hi to Bogdan. Thanks for taking time. How are you doing?
Hello, thanks for the heads up. I mean, we're doing well, trying to get used to this new normal.
Yeah, and what's the new normal for Romania right now, and how is the tech ecosystem going?
I think it's similar to the rest of the world, right? There's a lot of uncertainty. The industry is still going, but at a slower pace. Regulations are impacting many businesses, and they're impacting, on the technology side, they're impacting the clients of many technology businesses. The investment pace is slower and waiting for some signs of normality to show up. Actually, not normality, but predictability, because right now we don't know exactly what will happen in 2 months, in 3 months, in 6 months. So once we will figure out those, probably we'll have things rolling a bit quicker again.
Do you still see some trends emerging or accelerating in Romania? Like, for example, we hear a lot about telemedicine skyrocketing and travel tech like crashing. What do you observe there?
I think it's basically the same everywhere. Everything that involves collaboration at a distance is growing, and it's more interesting. There is this assumption that we'll live with the virus quite a long time from now, and that means that our habits will change, the way we interact with businesses and the government and with each other will change.
Good. Yeah, it's probably too early for any predictions, but you have quite an interesting story to tell, because you went through the last crisis that we remember, and you actually went quite well, or at least the outcome was good after you kept the company going and exited some years later. Can you share this story and maybe some key learnings from back then?
Yeah, I mean, with Conectoo, it was an enterprise email marketing platform. So we had big clients who were sending a lot of newsletters using Conectoo. And back then, our best customer were online newspapers. And when the crisis hit, we were growing really, really, really well. And that didn't, it didn't really went as planned. So I think we dropped like 60% of the revenue in just 1 month when the crisis hit. And then 3 months later, we were doing around 15 to 20% of the projected revenue. So it was basically all our clients, the revenue dropped significantly, and there was no more money. They stopped using not only our services but newslettering services in general, many of them. Some of them went bankrupt. We had a lot of money to get, which we never did, and that was that. And success, however you call that, I mean, success was just managing to keep the company alive, and it was a really, really painful process, and it took us approximately 2 years to get back in a bit of shape.
Back then, and did you have to lay off people? What were the first measures that you had to apply in order to survive through such a period?
Yeah, I mean, we laid off the majority of the team. There were just a few people who had left. And then we had to give up the office, so we moved into a co-working space, and we cut like absolutely any expense which wasn't fundamental to keep alive. And that's how we went through that crisis. So I think we were in a similar position to companies in travel tech right now, just to realize how big the impact was. It was really horrific. But we managed to skin the company and focus on e-commerce. So we started getting customers from the e-commerce vertical, which was one of the winners of that crisis because it was a more efficient channel for consumers to get products. And little by little, we managed to grow, and then the agency of our biggest customer acquired us.
And when you say little by little, what exactly do you mean? How much time did it take you to like realize you need to switch to another vertical? Because right now I kind of have the feeling from people around me that everyone's urging to find this new vertical niche very quickly, and people are feeling stressed all the time because they're not managing to kind of restructure that fast. How much time did it take you?
It took us a year and something. So the problem is that you don't have any big spenders in a crisis like this. So there is nobody is growing their expenses significantly. So getting new suppliers, ramping up expenses on a specific need. Everybody is trying to conserve cash. So it took us probably 1 year and something just to keep things alive and do a bit of retooling for our products. And then we started selling again. But it was like a very painful and slow process. I think in a situation like this, I mean, we didn't have that chance because our revenue dropped so drastically and so quickly. And I think now it's the same case. The only thing to do is to conserve cash as much as possible, so you have a decent runway in which you have time to, first of all, find a new vertical, execute on that, and wait for the clients in that vertical to start buying again, which they don't necessarily do from day one.
What do you think is the right, if there's a right mindset in this situation for entrepreneurs?
Everybody was talking about unicorn startups. Nowadays, time for cockroach startups. So whatever you do, don't die. There is no other way to survive through something like this. I think there are a few winners. From this point of view, the 2007 crisis was really, the 2008, 2009 crisis was really, let's say, evenly distributed to all the verticals. I think this one is not. So you have some significant winners, which are in the remote work vertical or any sort of digital collaboration, stuff like that. If you can focus on those things, it may be a very good thing for you. I mean, if you can somehow connect to the sources of money which are still there, which are still creating economical value, it's great. So try that, conserve cash, be as nimble as you can. And I've seen I was watching Crunchbase in February, and even in San Francisco, everybody was laying off between 10 and 20% of their employees. Even companies were raising like hundreds of millions a few months before that. Everybody realized that it will take a lot of time until things will catch up. And in face of this uncertainty, everybody tries to be, as um, as cheap as possible so you can stay afloat longer.
You mentioned the unicorns versus cockroaches, and I saw that you're actually doing an event on the matter, an online event, and it's part of the whole How to Web community and line. And in this regards, how is How to Web? It's a huge conference, and it's physical business, and events, as we know, are probably one of the hardest hit sectors. I heard prior to that you're reinventing. In what sense?
Well, in what sense? It's hard to say exactly what's the long-term impact on the event industry. So a light scenario may mean that, let's say the lightest scenario would be that by the end of the summer, everything will be back to normal. I don't believe that. Another scenario would be that it will take um, a year and a half, which is the most optimistic timeline for a vaccine to appear on the market, and then we'll have events again, or it may take even longer. So right now, everything that we have is the digital space, and we have to reinvent ourselves so we can address the digital space as well, and be ready for whenever offline events are again possible. I think that if you try to think about the potentially most negative scenario, the event business is dead for a long, long time. Because, like, if you look at the Ebola vaccine, it took 5 years to be developed. Okay, maybe this one would be quicker, but then you still have to develop it in billions of doses and distribute that through the world. And if this period of time takes more than 2 years, I think consumers will develop different set of habits. So while we are social animals, we may be less social animals. We may be more like Finnish social animals than we were before. And at the global scale, events will have a totally different pattern for clients. So we need to, for attendees actually. So we need to find a B plan which addresses how to act from a digital point of view.
Are there any plans in particular? Just for the audience, we went there with my partner Irina last year, and it was quite a cool event, both from content side, but also from the physical experience perspective. So how are you planning to replicate that in digital?
I don't have right now a final answer. So we are looking at options, but I don't have a final answer right now.
Do you think, like, one of the main topics last year during How to Web was building products? And do you think that we as a region should focus on that more and more, and why?
I mean, somehow it's really aligned with the Anderson Horowitz essay, right? Time to build. I think time to build is every day. I think creating innovation and creating products is something that we should be more focused on. I don't think it's necessarily I mean, it's definitely relevant to this situation because we have to reinvent many things in this context. What, just to have a better life for whatever time this thing takes. We don't know yet, and then we have to find a way to exit this, so we can have probably a different but somehow a normal life. So I think that's something that you can do only through innovation and creating new products, creating new endeavors who are adapted to whatever reality we have now.
Do you think there will be some kind of a shift? Because traditionally our region is very strong in B2B and enterprise software products. Do you think now with the current situation things will shift in other direction?
The reason we are good at B2B is because when it comes to B2C, B2C is very culturally dependent. So, and it's kind of difficult if you have a certain, like the team around you has a certain culture. It's really difficult to launch a B2C product to a country which has a different culture. I think, given the new reality, we may end up having more in common as Europeans than we previously had. Um, I don't know exactly if this will create a shift, but it could be something that um, creates bigger opportunities at a global scale.
Probably one very interesting topic right now is social innovation and businesses with impact, but we'll see that evolve with the time. For your business personally, like how is this situation? What's the biggest threat in the situation, and what's the biggest opportunity? A, from your perspective as an entrepreneur, and B, from your perspective as an ecosystem builder and someone who uh, has a lot of initiatives trying to boost an ecosystem, not only his own business.
Let's start with the second one. So if you look at what how the current context is impacting business development in general, I think existing relations are becoming more and more important. It's much more difficult to create new business connections because you can't meet in person. Still, zooming every day doesn't really create. Um, I don't think we are that well equipped to um, create new business connections just by zooming. I think if you think about investments, you generally investors want to know the founders that they work with in person. So existing connections are more important than ever. So one advice would be to keep your existing connections to clients, partners, investors, potential investors. Keep them warmish if possible, because they will value much more than they did previously. I think that's one thing. And then because everything now is digital, think about how do you do investments in the digital age? Well, all of a sudden, apart from your existing connections, the world is your oyster. So you can theoretically either you invest in somebody who is 3 blocks away or somebody who is in 3 countries away. The process is basically the same. And somebody who is 3 blocks away, if you didn't know them, if you didn't know him or her previously, you would basically have he would basically have the same status as somebody who's 3 countries away. So for Eastern Europe, that means that they could access money from abroad easier, but they will also have more competition at home if they're not yet in touch with their investors. Now, this is I don't know if it's a threat or an opportunity. Probably it's a little bit of both. Uh, but this is how the business will work in the next period of time. Now, from a conference organizer point of view, obviously you have to reinvent yourself. So biggest threat is closing whatever you have and just like putting a stop to it. And biggest opportunity is selling internationally, because it doesn't really matter where you are. So I think that's those are the two. I think this whole crisis, because now everything becomes digital, mm, let's say puts creates a lot of opportunities. I mean, it's like everybody has the same status. I mean, online, you have obviously you have brand value. Otherwise, even your TechCrunch or your trending topics is still just a website. So you can be accessed throughout the world just as easily as they are, and you can be a reliable source of information for many, many more people, because right now it doesn't matter if you're in Sofia, or it doesn't matter if you're in San Francisco, you're still a good information source. I mean, in your case, you depend on your network, but otherwise, positioning, I think you can just you can view the world through a different lens.
Yeah, this all probably means that we'll have to put much more focus on bringing the relevant and the best possible content in the case of event organizing, because usually at conferences and events, even if the content is not the best, the connections are there and the networking is there. And I can say from what I saw last year, there was definitely good networking opportunity, and that's something hard to replicate in digital. And I actually heard some interesting stuff about whole conferences conducted in VR already, which I find kind of weird, but will be a thing probably.
Yeah, I mean, you have this use case of discovering new leads, and like business leads, investment leads, whatever, um, in a different setting. Because otherwise, if you're attending a virtual conference, you're in front of your computer, and in one tab there is the conference, and in the other tab there is LinkedIn, and then in the other tab there is Gmail, and all of them now provide networking opportunities, right? So um, the use case that a conference solves is getting a grip of the other person really quickly in like 10-15 minutes. I don't know exactly if you want to sit in your chair and do like 5 minutes, 10 minutes Zooms with everybody that you see in a list in a virtual conference. I think that there is something to be explored there, but it's really different than the interaction that you have during a physical conference. So yeah, I don't, I mean, I have a lot of questions right now. I don't necessarily have a lot of answers. I think you just have to realize that there is a real issue, and it can be good or bad in the same time. And yeah, it's something that you have to tackle somehow.
Yeah, I actually hope that you'll come up with a great solution. I'm quite curious to hear more once it evolves. One last question, Bogdan. As an entrepreneur, um, what was your first response to the situation? Was it panic? Was it rush to apply measures quickly, or rather relax and think what you should do in the longer game?
I think it's a bit of all. So first of all, you have to react quickly, because otherwise you don't have time to think. So you have to react quickly, and preserve cash as soon as much as possible. So I think that's absolutely fundamental, and you can do that through various reasons. our team is intact. So from this point of view, we are absolutely okay. And second thing is that you have to give it a bit of time. But I think there is let's say a danger of trying to overthink and outsmart such a crisis by just playing with a lot of hypotheses and scenarios. I mean, my Facebook page was invaded by all these graphics of people who have never studied medicine in their life, and they were trying to figure out, when will be the peak and when will cases will be zero and when will normal life resume. I've spent a bit of time reading medical opinions, and like the assumption the general feeling is that we don't know.
Okay, well, Bogdan, so much thanks for taking time and giving us this perspective of how Romania is doing, but also, which I found quite interesting, is the idea of the new networking on conferences. And I really wish you lots of luck with this ambitious endeavor, and I hope for the best that How to Web will be the same big event regardless of what form this year, and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and talk to you soon.